He murmured into the hollow of Cole's throat, his breath a plume of warmth against the skin stretched over the frantic pulse. He wondered aloud if he could just devour him, that way Cole could be a part of his body forever. The words, whispered against the space just above his heart, made the blood in Cole's veins turn to ice. The post-coital haze began to clear, and Cole tried to shove him away, but Julian's frame was an unmoving weight. He reached for the pack of cigarettes on the bedside table, a sleek black monolith of polished wood. He managed to get one between his lips, but his fumbling fingers couldn't locate the lighter, and a spike of irritation pierced through his fatigue. Cole scoffed, the unlit cigarette bobbing, suggesting that he would just end up as waste to be flushed away. Julian insisted that wouldn't happen, that Cole would become a fundamental part of him, a companion for eternity. Cole bit down on the filter, a dry, humorless sound escaping his lips. He informed Julian that the human body replaces every cell over 7 years, and by then, he'd be nothing more than a memory of metabolized tissue, utterly gone. The morbid science of it seemed to stun Julian into a momentary stillness. Seizing the opportunity, Cole pushed him off and sat up, grabbing for his shirt on the floor. It was shredded beyond recognition. His slacks were in a similar state. The floor was a battlefield of expensive, ruined fabric. He had just pulled a fresh shirt from the cavernous walk-in closet when he was slammed against the mahogany doors. Julian's voice was a desperate rasp against his ear, pleading that he couldn't disappear. His hips moved with a subtle, insistent pressure, closing any remaining distance between them. Cole's voice went flat and cold. He reminded Julian he had a gala to attend. Julian's hair, damp and messy, chafed against the sensitive skin of Cole's neck. He tried to pull away from the tickling sensation, but Julian's grip tightened, a manacle of flesh and bone. Julian informed him that he'd already looked into the evening's event and knew it was a worthless charity auction. He questioned whether Cole was truly interested in networking or just in flirting with other men. It was the same old story. Cole had lost count of the times he'd told him not to pry into his schedule, a demand that always went ignored. He asked Julian if he ever got tired of this, which was met with the fearful question of whether Cole was tired of him. A wet, open-mouthed kiss landed on his shoulder, trailing a heated path up to his neck, where it settled over the thrumming artery and became a gentle, proprietary bite. Julian's voice was a broken whisper, reminding Cole that he had once claimed to love him, and only him. Cole squeezed his eyes shut, steeling himself for the inevitable fight, but was interrupted by a sharp click. A flicker of blue flame sprang to life before his face. The cigarette was lit, but before he could take a drag, Julian plucked it from his lips. A cloud of smoke drifted from Julian's faint smirk. He conceded that he wasn't forbidding him from going, so long as he took something with him. A sudden, foreign pressure invaded Cole's body. His eyes flew open, and a wave of fury washed over him as he struggled. He spat through gritted teeth, demanding to know what was wrong with him. A flake of ash from the stolen cigarette fell onto his forearm, and his body flinched from the phantom sting. Julian used the distraction to his full advantage. He leaned in, his breath hot against Cole's ear, whispering a promise that as long as Cole behaved, he wouldn't activate it. He added a chilling against trying to remove it himself, as his phone would provide real-time alerts. Julian did not keep his word. It was because Cole missed his call by less than a minute. Cole clutched his phone, his long strides a poor disguise for the humiliating vibrations emanating from deep inside him as he pushed open the restroom door. Of course, it wasn't empty. A business rival with a predatory smile noticed his distress, his expression a mask of feigned concern. In that instant, the frequency of the device was dialed to its highest setting, and Cole's legs nearly gave out. Beyond the marble walls, the city's elite mingled and laughed, oblivious. He, meanwhile, was trapped in a cramped stall, miserably trying to deal with the device Julian had forced upon him. The man outside lingered, his type all too familiar with the sordid games played in their circles. A low whistle cut through the air, dripping with insinuation. He remarked on Cole's adventurous spirit, wondering aloud why he was using toys meant for rent boys on himself. Footsteps approached, and Knuckles rapped against the stall door. The man offered his assistance, asking with mock politeness whether Cole needed help pushing it in or taking it out. On the other end of the line, Julian's voice was sharp with suspicion, demanding to know who was there, what they were doing, why he would even think of removing it. He announced he was on his way. Cole pressed his forehead against the cool porcelain of the wall. The shame receded, replaced by a profound weariness that had been settling in his bones for a very long time. For the first time, he seriously contemplated the question of why he allowed this. Why he let Julian strip him of his freedom, trample his dignity, and sabotage his professional life. Was it because Julian was the physical embodiment of his desires, a prize he'd ruthlessly pursued? Was it the decade they'd spent tangled together, from 18 to 28? Or was it because he owed him a life debt 3 times over? He set his phone face down on the toilet tank and silently smoked a full cigarette. After exhaling the last wisp of smoke, he sent a text. "Julian, we're done." It was the harshest punishment he could conceive, a desperate hope that it would finally teach him restraint. Fearing another one of Julian's possessive episodes, he brought 5 security guards with him when he went to the penthouse to retrieve his things. Surprisingly, Julian was placid. In the few days since they'd last seen each other, he had lost weight, the oversized white cashmere sweater hanging loosely on his frame. He had clearly prepared for Cole's arrival, his hair neatly styled and his face clean-shaven. As he watched Cole's men systematically empty the apartment of his belongings, Julian asked quietly if the falling ash had burned him that day. Knowing him all too well, Cole gestured to 2 of the guards, who moved to block Julian's path before he could attempt to take his hand. The quiet facade crumbled instantly. From behind the wall of muscle, Julian's beautiful, pale eyes locked onto Cole's, the gaze turning turbulent. He spoke Cole's name, his pale lips twisting into something that was not quite a smile. He then mused on whether people became ghosts after they died. Cole remained silent, so Julian continued, his voice barely audible. He said he wished he could become a ghost so he could follow Cole forever, to know where he was and who he was with at every moment, without the gnawing anxiety of not knowing if he was falling for someone else. He was a coward, even as a ghost, too afraid to even ask why Cole was breaking up with him. Terrified the answer was that Cole had found someone new. But Cole could never answer him. Julian fell through the exhaust fumes of his departing car, the white sweater a splash of innocence against the fiery sunset, staining the evening clouds with a rust-colored memory. Only in the deep, silent hours of the night would Cole admit to a sliver of regret. Regret for what he couldn't say. Long after, the sting of hot ash on his skin again brought him back. He stared at it, a tiny gray speck on the floor, as something inside him crumbled. The answer had been there all along, hidden in the ashes. He regretted not answering Julian's question. The ember had touched his skin, but it hadn't left a mark. It had been a fleeting, cherry blossom pink impression, entirely painless. Yet when he searched his arm for that petal-sized memory, he found nothing. 7 years had passed. Every cell had been replaced. It had been metabolized. Julian was utterly, irrevocably gone. In the 8th year of Julian's absence, Cole was inspecting a downtown construction site when a figure lunged from the crowd. This time, there was no one to shield him. He collapsed into a pool of his own blood, and as his consciousness faded, a single thought echoed in the darkness. Would he become a ghost, too? But then he opened his eyes. Julian was kneeling by the bed, carefully lining the inside of an ankle cuff with a piece of soft fabric. When he noticed Cole trying to pull his foot away, he grabbed his ankle, his grip impossibly strong, his eyes glacial. Cole wasn't trying to escape. He stared, transfixed, at the dark bruise blooming on Julian's jawline. Without thinking, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to it. The skin was warm. This wasn't a dream. Julian's body went rigid, then sagged in defeat. He asked why Cole was pretending, since he was the one who had hit him. The memory flooded back, sharp and unwelcome, from 9 years prior, a year before the breakup. Cole's family, disapproving of his relationship with Julian, had forced him into a blind date with the heiress of a rival dynasty. The setting was a rooftop restaurant, all soft jazz and glittering cityscapes. But Julian had appeared, shattering the carefully constructed peace. To preserve the alliance between the two families, and to give everyone an out, Cole had struck Julian a single symbolic punch. Julian's face had been a mask of fury then, and he'd warned Cole that begging wouldn't work this time, that he was his and only his. Cole suddenly laughed. Julian, stunned, had only grown darker. Cole remembered what he did then. He had cradled Julian's head, apologized, and promised over and over that he loved only him. That sliver of guilt had been the seed from which he had cultivated Julian's obsessive, controlling nature, a monster he had nurtured and then discarded. Laughter now turned to tears that pricked the corners of his eyes. He wiped them away and let his gaze trace the lines of Julian's face, lingering on the sharp angle of his jaw, the gentle bob of his throat. In the instant Julian was distracted, Cole lifted his foot and pressed it firmly against Julian's shoulder, grinding his heel. The delicate chain on his other ankle chimed, catching the warm lamplight in a shower of golden sparks. Through that shimmering haze, he arched an eyebrow, his voice a low challenge. He asked if Julian was going to do something or just stall. Julian seized his foot. Unfazed, Cole used his other foot to pin Julian's leg. He taunted him, saying if he was truly capable, he would make it so Cole couldn't leave the bed, couldn't go anywhere instead of playing these pointless games. In an instant, both his feet were captured, and he was flipped onto his back, Julian a mountain of furious muscle above him, his eyes dark with a gathering storm. Julian's voice was a low growl, asking if Cole understood what he was saying. Cole met his gaze, his smile widening. He declared that if Julian left him with even an ounce of strength, he might just crawl into someone else's bed. He'd lie in another man's arms, sharing a post-coital cigarette, and thank him for setting him free. His words were cut off by a kiss, a brutal collision of lips and teeth. Julian's contained fury finally broke, a tidal wave that consumed him. Cole was a ship tossed on a raging sea, finally coming to rest on the shores of the island named Julian, utterly spent. His hands slid from Julian's shoulders, his fingertips brushing against the hard, raised line of a scar that ran perilously close to his heart. A scar from when an 18-year-old Julian had stood in front of him, a human shield. Julian had always been ashamed of it, hiding it from view, and over time, Cole had nearly forgotten the day Julian almost died for him, and the fact that his parents actually had. As if from a great distance, he felt Julian brush the sweat-damp hair from his forehead. The chilling anger in Julian's eyes was gone, replaced by the arrogant confidence that Cole secretly craved. He asked if Cole had any energy left to curse him out. He certainly had a right to be satisfied. Cole genuinely couldn't move. Cole listed his demands: transfer $800 to himself from Cole's phone, carry him to the shower, change the sheets, and go to sleep. Julian skipped straight to the second step. Cole stopped him, stating he wasn't short on cash. As a top-tier trader, Julian certainly wasn't. Cole hadn't forced him, just let him pick him up. He asked if Julian wanted to know why he'd specified 800. Julian hesitated, then put him down and obediently transferred the money. Cole glanced at the confirmation on his phone and his lips curved. It was a good night's work, but he could do better next time. Julian froze, his knuckles whitening around his phone as he stared at Cole in disbelief, asking what he thought he was. Cole replied that for now he was his boyfriend, but starting today he was introducing a performance-based rating system. The pay was uncapped and depended entirely on his efforts. He had, in fact, succeeded in leaving Cole unable to walk, but he had ignored certain requests mid-act, so the bonus was small. His skin felt sticky, and he was uncomfortable. Ignoring the sudden drop in atmospheric pressure around Julian, He coolly prompted him again about the shower. Julian remained motionless, his dark eyes fixed on him. Cole explained that he didn't want to break up anymore, so he hoped Julian would take this seriously. The day he performed and didn't receive a payment would be the day they were well and truly over. Seeing the color drain from Julian's face, he added with a light, almost cruel cheerfulness, that it wasn't a one-way street. The money he transferred was like a token. Once Julian accumulated enough, he could cash them in to make his own, more extreme demands. Julian's lips moved, and he asked for an example. Cole told him that perhaps he could earn back the privilege of knowing his phone's lock screen password, or the right to demand he reject other men's advances, or even force him to wear one of his devices to the office. Julian cut him off, his voice reverting to the sullen tone from the day he'd crashed the blind date, insisting he could make Cole do all of that without any tokens. Cole then asked, "What about marriage?" As expected, Julian's body jolted, a tremor running through him like snow shaking from a pine branch. A faint smile touched Cole's lips. He said softly that, with enough tokens, he would stay with him forever. It was a word Julian had said countless times, but one that had rarely passed Cole's own lips. In his last life, he had lost Julian forever. Reborn, he couldn't guarantee that history wouldn't repeat itself a year from now. But one thing was certain. He refused to live with that regret again. Refused to spend his nights wondering what might have been if he hadn't sent that text, if he had let Julian hold his hand. He would mend Julian's insecurities, correct his paranoid delusions, and with the confidence built by an ever-increasing pile of tokens, he would be there to catch him when he fell. After a long board meeting, Cole sent Julian a message asking what he was doing. The reply was instantaneous: watching the market. Julian was always disciplined during trading hours, mostly because he had access to Cole's calendar and knew he was also working. When Cole confirmed his meeting was over, Julian immediately asked how the negotiations went. Ignoring the question, Cole sent a picture of his lower half. A leather belt cinching a narrow waist, long legs sheathed in tailored trousers, casually crossed. He typed, "I want you. Come to my office." After sending it, he put the phone down and mentally calculated the travel time from their penthouse. He buzzed his assistant and told her to push his next appointment forward. When Julian pushed the door open, Cole was in the middle of a warm handshake with a business partner, their palms pressed firmly together. The expressions on both men's faces shifted, one of surprise, the other of dark displeasure. Cole smiled at the partner, explaining that Julian was with him, and suggested they continue. Julian walked silently to his side and sat down, his presence a disruptive force. He smelled of fresh soap, shaving foam, and the sharp mint of mouthwash he had prepared. It was a shame Cole didn't acknowledge it. Cole gestured to a far corner of the expansive office, telling Julian to wait for him over there. Julian glanced at the indicated spot, his gaze chilling by several degrees as he asked what that was supposed to mean. Cole affected a perfect mask of confusion, asking if he didn't understand that he was in the middle of business. Julian stared at him for a few seconds, then rose and moved to the designated chair. The scheduled 1-hour meeting stretched into 3. The entire time, Julian sat stone-faced, his eyes locked on them. Cole pretended not to notice, carrying on with an animated discussion. The moment Julian finally broke his gaze and looked down at his phone, Cole stood up, bringing the meeting to a close. He had barely shown his guest out when he was slammed against his own desk. Julian's pent-up frustration made his movements rougher than usual. But the anticipated violent conquest ended before it could begin. Julian looked down at Cole's hand, pressed firmly against his chest, his expression turning ugly. Cole just smiled, feigning regret that he had another meeting and that this would have to be it for today. Julian's voice was a low snarl, asking if he was playing with him, if he really thought he didn't know perfectly well whether he had a meeting or not. He didn't reply, nor did he release him. They were at an impasse. After a long moment, Cole hooked his arms around Julian's neck and pulled him closer, murmuring that he knew he'd gotten ready, and that he could at least have a kiss. Julian didn't move. Cole, refusing to indulge him, said if he didn't want to, fine. That spurred him into action. Soft lips met his. Just as the kiss deepened, Cole pushed at his shoulders, reminding him it was time for his meeting. The broad chest before him was still heaving. Julian took a deep breath, pushing himself off the desk to stand upright. Cole picked up his phone and transferred the payment before slowly getting to his feet. Julian stared at the screen, his tone clipped. He asked why this was an order of magnitude larger than last time. Cole explained that 2 hours of frustrated foreplay couldn't compare to 2 minutes of a good kiss. Julian's jaw tightened. He was still aroused, but his pride wouldn't let him show it. Cole continued that last time wasn't great, but today Julian had been very obedient, so he couldn't help but be a little more generous. He opened his phone's front-facing camera, checking his lips for any marks. There were none. He was presentable for his meeting. Julian stood nearby, watching his every move. An idea sparked. The hand that was about to lower his phone went back up to his lips, his fingertips tracing their outline, his thumb lightly probing the seam. In his peripheral vision, he saw it clearly. Julian's throat convulsed, his eyes darkened, and the front of his trousers strained against the fabric. Knowing him, he had probably imagined 100 different scenarios on the way over. A single kiss had left him wanting more. So what? Cole had already called a halt. As Julian took an unsteady step forward, Cole tilted his head back, feigning innocence, and asked if there was anything else. A large hand settled on his thigh, fingers hooking into his belt loop. Julian's voice was strained when he suggested they skip the meeting. Cole agreed instantly, his tone suddenly icy as he added that Julian would have to return the $8,000 first. He reached for Julian's phone, but Julian snatched it back, hiding it behind his back. Cole pulled, but Julian's grip was iron. He stated that his payment was a reward for Julian's obedience, and his desire to renege on their agreement invalidated it. He asked if Julian really thought a kiss was worth $8,000. Julian wouldn't budge. Cole told him that if that was his choice, he would see him at home. This time, Julian didn't argue. For the first time ever, he was exercising self-control, voluntarily pulling away. A surge of heat still lingered where he had touched him. Cole pressed the back of his hand to his flushed cheek and let out a soft breath. If it could work once, it could work again. One day, they would find a normal way to be together. They would, wouldn't they? The alarm chirped once before it was silenced. Julian slipped out of bed, and soon the sounds of breakfast preparation drifted from the kitchen. Cole stared at the ceiling for a while. In his past life, Julian had despised the time between waking and leaving. He was like a big dog with separation anxiety, constantly orbiting him, interfering with his every move. He used to argue that even if they lived to be 80, they'd only have 50-odd years left. Why waste a single moment on unimportant people or things? He'd beg Cole not to go out, to let him take care of him. That monologue was a daily occurrence, right up until his suicide. Now, Cole, who had always loved to sleep in, was conditioned to get out of bed the second the alarm sounded. He was terrified of that moment of awareness when he might realize the other side of the bed was already cold. Terrified of his mind replaying Julian's sleepy pleas, of being consumed by regret for a tenderness he had never reciprocated. Julian announced that breakfast was ready and asked if he wanted to sleep a little longer. Cole's gaze shifted from the ceiling to Julian's face. He burrowed back under the covers, bargaining for 5 more minutes. In his 36 years of life, he had been a master of his own universe, a titan of industry. But in his relationship with Julian, this was the first time he truly felt in control. Julian climbed back into bed, and 5 minutes stretched into another 5 and another. A notification from his assistant detailed the day's schedule. His finger paused on the last item, a high school reunion. He had a vague, unpleasant memory of it. Too many years had passed, but he recalled that after that event, Julian had another one of his episodes, tying him to the bed for a day and a night. Julian, His chin propped on Cole's shoulder, asked if he was going. He was being restless, but still within the bounds of what Cole would tolerate. Cole confirmed he was. It was just a networking event masquerading as a reunion. Though he already knew the answer, he asked Julian if he would be joining him. Julian replied, of course. Reunions were breeding grounds for affairs, and he had to keep a close eye on him. It wasn't an accusation, but a charmingly possessive declaration. Cole turned over and stroked his face. The bruise was long gone. He leaned in and kissed him again. That face, handsome enough to incite divine jealousy, still made his heart pound. For a moment, his fingers twitched. Except for that one day and every day after. He lowered his gaze and told Julian to watch him closely. In that moment, he abandoned his plan to test Julian. There was time. There was no need to be so harsh. Giving him a sense of security couldn't hurt. With that in mind, he maintained a polite but distinct distance from everyone at the party. Yet he couldn't fend off the overly enthusiastic who insisted on draping their arms over his shoulders. He glanced at Julian, who seemed composed, betraying no reaction. The anxiety that had been coiled in his stomach all night finally eased. The recent training was clearly effective. Toward the end of the evening, his oldest friend, Alex, arrived late. His eyes lit up when he saw Cole, and he headed straight for him. He was the only one there with whom Cole could genuinely reminisce. Alex had been managing his family's overseas branch for years. His flight had been delayed, he complained, slinging an arm around Cole as he led him to the buffet, declaring he was starving. Cole smiled warmly, telling him to relax, that no one was going to fight him for the food. Just as Alex loaded his plate, his tone shifted, becoming low and conspiratorial. He asked why Cole was still with him. Cole froze, instinctively looking over his shoulder. Julian was following, but he was likely out of earshot. Alex pressed on, saying it was fine to play around, but he shouldn't get in too deep. Cole replied that it was serious. Alex shot him a skeptical look, stuffing a large forkful of pasta into his mouth. He said he knew Cole felt he owed him, but after all these years, his family had given Julian more than enough, had helped him climb to a new social stratum. What more could he want? Cole's brow furrowed. As he was about to respond, a loud crash came from behind them. Julian was crouched beside the dessert tower, a shattered pistachio macaron at his feet. A server rushed over. Cole took a step toward him, but Alex grabbed his arm. Alex hissed that this is what happens when you try to force someone into a world where they don't belong. Cole's face hardened. He told Alex, who had been abroad for too long, that before he opened his mouth, he should look up the private equity magnate his own father was currently courting. Alex's face went blank for a second, then his eyes widened in realization. It was him. Cole didn't spare him another glance, shaking off his hand and walking toward Julian. He asked if he was all right. Julian looked at him, his expression serene, explaining that his hand had slipped. Cole asked if he liked them, noting that he rarely saw him eat sweets, and offered to have the hotel send some to their home. Julian said it wasn't necessary. He glanced at Alex, who was standing a short distance away, and asked if Cole was done talking. Cole nodded, took his hand, and said it was time to go home. His palm was shockingly cold. Even as their fingers intertwined, the chill remained. He pulled their joined hands into the pocket of his overcoat. Julian flinched slightly but then allowed it. Cole caught a fleeting shadow of melancholy cross his face, and a strange unease stirred within him. Felt like he was missing something. But he had made his position clear, defended him. What else was there? Shaking his head, he led him out. As the party dispersed, people cast subtle glances their way. Their relationship was an open secret in their circle, but Cole had never publicly confirmed it. He stopped and told Julian to kiss him. Julian's hand tensed in his. He murmured that they could kiss at home. Cole scoffed, calling him a coward who was all talk. He demanded a kiss right then and there. Julian remained frozen, but the hand in his pocket was growing warmer. Cole lowered his voice, playing his trump card. 100,000. Julian's eyes flickered. He leaned down and pressed his lips to Cole's. The hotel's ornate chandelier spun above them. Cole closed his eyes and responded, but just as he tried to deepen the kiss, Julian pulled away, withdrawing his hand as well. Cole had never liked publicizing his private life. When nosy acquaintances asked about Julian in his presence, he was always evasive. So he assumed Julian must feel insecure, which was why he was always asking if Cole truly loved him. This public display should have been a confirmation of their status. So why did Julian seem unhappy? Julian just pursed his lips and said that they shouldn't do that in public again, that it wasn't appropriate. The man who had sent him to a gala with a vibrator inside him was now talking about appropriateness. Cole didn't bother to argue. The car stopped smoothly in front of their building, but Julian remained seated. Cole called his name. Julian turned, the cold light of his phone screen casting stark shadows on his face. On the screen was the transaction record. He was doing the math. He turned off the screen and looked at Cole seriously, asking how much more he needed to make a request. Cole's tense nerves finally relaxed. So that was it. He wanted something. Their life had been placid recently. Perhaps Julian was craving some excitement. Cole patted the driver's seat, signaling for him to get out. He leaned in, asking Julian what he wanted to play at. He thought that turning this pathological controller into a semi-normal partner was already a huge success. A little reward was probably fine. He began to list possibilities on his fingers. 10,000 for the car, 20,000 in the elevator, 100,000 for the penthouse. Kiss was free, but Julian asked about forever. Cole paused, the word echoing in his mind. The forever tier. He was that impatient. He hid a smile. He was impatient too. He had already secretly measured Julian's finger while he slept. The custom Cartier rings should be ready soon. 2 million. The exact price of the matching set. Julian didn't say anything. Cole leaned closer, asking how much he was short. 139,000. The voice was heavy, with an undertone he couldn't quite decipher. For a moment he thought it was longing. It was a strange feeling. He tentatively wrapped his arms around Julian's neck, whispering that he would have it soon, that at this rate, it would be his by next month. 2 months was more than enough time to plan the perfect proposal. The arms around his back slowly tightened, a hand tracing the line of his spine. Julian responded with a low hum. The touch made him dizzy. He gave another hint that kisses were free. Julian understood this time, tilting his chin up for a kiss. The wine from the party had turned the kiss from tart currant to ripe plum, deep and lingering. It was only broken by the crisp click of a belt buckle. Julian froze as if waking from a dream, the charged atmosphere vanishing. In the dim car, only their ragged breaths remained. He apologized for losing control, but they had stopped at a mutually frustrating point. Cole rubbed against him, deciding his indulgence had gone far enough. What was one more time? His consciousness soon drowned in a rising tide of pleasure. A month passed. Julian had grown accustomed to their reward system. On the rare occasion Cole forgot, Julian would gently remind him. It was almost cute. A man who managed billions in assets was meticulously counting the hundreds Cole gave him, checking the total every day like some kind of ritualistic countdown. Cole couldn't help but want to fast forward, to see the look on his face when he proposed. Would he cry? He had never seen Julian cry. Not when he was stabbed, not when he was shown the crime scene photos of his parents. He had always been wound as tight as a kite string, perpetually on the verge of snapping. The thought sent a pang of pain through his heart, but when he tried to grasp the feeling, it was gone. An illusion. After a grueling 4-hour meeting, his neck and shoulders were screaming in protest. His assistant had arranged for a physical therapist. By the time he got home, it was much later than usual. Julian was on the sofa in his loungewear, focused on his laptop. Hearing the door, he closed it and stood up. He asked if Cole wanted a late supper, that he had made soup. The warm light of the room softened the sharp angles of his face. Cole found himself staring, and on an impulse, asked if Julian wasn't going to ask why he was late. Julian, stirring the soup, glanced over his shoulder and said that Cole had messaged him. But he had only said he was delayed, not where he was. Cole suppressed a strange feeling in his chest and nodded, saying he would take a quick shower. He worried the soup would get cold. As he unbuttoned his shirt, he froze. The therapist had been vigorous. A constellation of red marks dotted his neck and shoulders, stark against his pale skin. His scalp prickled. He looked at Julian, who had clearly seen them. His expression was unreadable, his gaze fixed on Cole's shoulder before slowly traveling up to his face. Cole stammered out an explanation about his neck being sore and getting a massage. He was surprised to find himself feeling a sense of relief at Julian's calm reaction, and even a strange sliver of anticipation. Julian asked if it was better now, and offered to wash his back. He stood where he was, unmoving. Cole slowly lowered his hands, feeling lost for the first time. He heard himself decline the offer. After his shower, Julian was waiting with a hairdryer. Cole sat and drank the warm soup while Julian dried his hair. The world was filled with the hum of the dryer and the sound of his own swallowing, but it felt deafeningly quiet. Why wasn't he saying anything? Why wasn't he questioning him? They were supposed to be becoming more like a normal couple, but now Cole had no idea what a normal couple was supposed to be like. Julian turned off the dryer and placed his hands on Cole's shoulders, his grip firm but gentle. Cole put down the soup bowl, turned, and settled onto his lap. He asked if they should, that it had been a while since they'd been on the sofa. More accurately, it had been a while since Julian had initiated anything. It was always Cole who had to instigate to slide into bed next to him. The only thing Julian was proactive about was collecting his payments. Julian's throat moved, but he shook his head, saying Cole's neck was sore and they should wait. Cole straightened up, asking what his neck had to do with anything, and began to push down his pajama pants. He told Julian that if he was going to be difficult, he could just lie there and he would do it himself. A hand stopped him, the grip unyielding. Julian's voice was firm. He said he had work to do. An unidentifiable emotion surged through Cole. He stared down at the man beneath him, his tone turning sharp. He pointed out that at this hour, the American markets were closed and the Asian markets hadn't opened yet. What work could he possibly have? Julian pulled his pants back up and leaned in to kiss him, murmuring that he really did have something to finish and that they could tomorrow. The kiss was soft, and Cole's anger melted. He asked for another. Julian cradled his face and gave him a long, deep kiss. He told him to go to sleep. The feeling of being wronged had mostly vanished. Cole agreed, telling him not to stay up too late. But Julian never came to the bedroom that night. Just before dawn, he slipped in, rustled the sheets on his side of the bed to create the illusion of having slept there, and then went to the kitchen. Cole opened his eyes. He didn't call out the small deception, just watched his silhouette as he made breakfast. He picked up his phone and sent a message to his assistant. His family had always been in manufacturing. He only dabbled in finance. But a quick check confirmed the markets were indeed volatile. Julian held a massive portfolio, a ship that large would have trouble navigating such narrow, turbulent straits. So, was Julian's strange behavior due to work stress? He couldn't remember anything like this happening in their past life. Julian had always known his every move but rarely spoke of his own work, only ever sharing good news. Aside from his extreme, possessive tendencies, in some ways, he was a more considerate partner than Cole. The driver turned the car around just out of sight of their building and headed in a different direction, stopping in front of the building that housed the hedge fund Julian worked for. Cole knew nothing about trading, but he hoped he could help, even just a little, to lighten his load. This second chance was too precious. He wanted them both to have it easier, to last longer. The fund manager he met with looked haggard. He told Cole that Julian had resigned. He hadn't told Cole? To prevent a panic among their clients, the news hadn't been made public yet, but the transition was almost complete. The world dissolved into a dull roar. His assistant had to grab his arm to keep him from collapsing. Why would he do this? Why quit now? This never happened last time. A wild, terrifying thought took root in his mind. Was it possible that Julian was reborn, too? It was hard not to connect it to his recent detachment. His air of indifference, as if nothing mattered. His mind went blank. It was like that day when he had found Julian sitting quietly in the pristine apartment, waiting for him, only to step out the window the moment Cole had left. His fingers trembled so badly he couldn't form a coherent sentence. He struggled to breathe, finally managing to choke out an order to the driver. Home now. He stumbled up to their apartment, his fingers fumbling with the keypad, entering the wrong code several times. He took a deep breath, willing the tears back, his left hand gripping his right wrist as he slowly, deliberately, entered the code. The door swung open. Warm light spilled out. He stood frozen on the threshold, afraid to move. Julian was standing barefoot in the entryway. He had probably been woken by the repeated failed entry attempts. His eyes were still hazy with sleep, but they cleared instantly when he saw the undisguised panic on Cole's face. His own expression tightened with alarm. He asked what had happened. Cole just stood there, mute. Julian quickly scanned the hallway behind him. No one. He checked Cole from head to toe. No injuries. He gently took Cole's shoulders, his voice strained as he asked again what was wrong. A lump formed in his throat. Cole bit his lip, trying to suppress a sob, but the years of carefully buried grief came flooding out. He finally whispered, "Julian, I was burned by the ash." Julian froze for a second, his tense expression softening slightly. "Where did it burn you?" A few tufts of his hair were sticking up from sleep. He meticulously checked Cole's hands, then knelt to examine his trousers. Nothing. His arms were clear. But when Cole pointed to a patch of smooth, unblemished skin and said it was here, Julian didn't question it. He simply knelt there, holding Cole's hand, and pressed a soft kiss to his forearm. "Does it still hurt?" he asked. Cole stared at him, numbly shaking his head, then nodding. On a strange impulse, he asked Julian, "Did it hurt you back then?" Julian looked up. "When?" he asked. Cole's voice was barely a whisper. "When they kidnapped me. The men who did it when we were trying to escape." Julian cut him off, his fingers tightening around Cole's. "Don't talk about the past," he said firmly. Before Cole could say more, Julian stood and swept him into his arms. "You look terrible. Rest at home today." He placed him on the bed and turned to leave, but Cole shot out a hand and grabbed his sleeve. "I'll get you some water. I'll be right back." He held on tight. After a long standoff, Julian sighed, a barely audible sound, and slipped under the covers beside him, gently patting his back. He asked if he'd had a nightmare on the way home. It wasn't a nightmare. It was their real past life. Cole confessed that he had never really wanted to break up with him. The patting stopped, but Cole was too lost in his own fear to notice. He clutched Julian's shirt, knowing he hadn't been reborn, knowing he didn't understand, but unable to stop the words from tumbling out. He just wanted Julian to rein it in a little, because sometimes he was too much. But how could he have been so cruel? Everyone had congratulated him on his freedom, but only he knew that he was the one who was trapped forever. A strong arm wrapped around his waist, pulling him tight against a solid chest. "I know," Julian's voice rumbled, the vibrations traveling through Cole's skull. "I know you didn't want to break up with me, and I know you're trapped." The Julian before him couldn't possibly know what he was talking about. Alarm bells screamed in Cole's head. He pushed away from the embrace, flipping Julian onto his back and pinning him. "What are you talking about? Why did you quit your job?" Julian avoided his gaze, asking instead how many points he would get for this performance. Cole was stunned into silence for a moment before he understood. He told him not to change the subject, asking if he was really short on that money. He was short the $2 million. Cole's eyes widened slowly, a glacial cold spreading through him. A chilling hypothesis began to form. They had completely different expectations for the tokens. He was waiting for Julian to ask him to be with him forever, so he could pull out the rings he had already bought. But Julian was planning something else entirely. Their goals, which he thought were aligned, had diverged at some point. Cole told him he was getting no points. In fact, he was docking them for quitting without telling him. He grabbed Julian's phone from the nightstand. It was unlocked. He went straight to their chat history. His finger hovered over the screen. He saw his contact name. Julian had added 3 words after it. 3,000 left. The blood in his veins turned to ice. Julian snatched the phone back, leaving Cole's hand suddenly empty, his heart hollowing out with it. There was no more denying it. The meaning was clear. He didn't want to be with him anymore. He wanted to use the tokens to buy his freedom. Their standoff was interrupted by a phone call. It was from his family, summoning him to a dinner. His father added, as an afterthought, to bring Julian. Cole looked at Julian, who was already getting dressed. He asked if he was really going. His family had always been vehemently opposed to their relationship. The sudden invitation was a surprise. Even more surprising was Julian's reaction. He nodded. For years, he had refused to set foot in Cole's family home, had refused to even speak of it. It reminded him of the year he turned 18, the year his life fell apart. Cole's father had been ruthless in his takeover of the family business, making countless enemies. Those enemies, unable to touch him, had kidnapped Cole instead, with no intention of letting him live. He had been left for dead in an abandoned factory for 3 days when a couple scavenging for scrap metal found him. They were simple people who assumed he was a runaway. They sent their only son to take the weak, speechless boy to the hospital. That son was Julian, 18 years old, tall and thin like a resilient young bamboo. Cole had collapsed on his back, feeling safe for the first time in days. He woke up in a private hospital suite. His father berated him for being so careless, but eventually softened. He said the family who found him had no other relatives, and if the boy lived, they would bring him into their household and find him a job. If not, it was fate. Julian survived. He was enrolled in Cole's elite private school and attended the same university. Many said that when they were together, Julian seemed more like the air, with his aloof indifference, while Cole orbited him like a moon. Only Cole knew that Julian was simmering with a rage that had no outlet. The guilty had been punished, but the one who bore the greatest sin was an innocent. When Cole discovered Julian was gay, he finally found his opening. He tried every trick in the book to seduce him, but Julian remained unmoved. On his 19th birthday, Cole snuck out of his own lavish party and into Julian's small room, stripping naked. He told Julian that the men who had killed his parents were in hell, and that he could go to hell too. But before he did, he begged Julian to let him, to love only him, to belong only to him. He had his father's blood, after all, capable of dressing up base desire in the language of devotion. After that night, he was in Julian's bed almost every night. It was inevitable they would be discovered. Faced with his father's towering rage, Cole's instinct was to retreat. He stood with his head bowed, silent. Julian was quiet for a long time. Then, just as Cole was about to face his punishment, Julian spoke. He said he had forced him. He took the blame. An act of kindness had become a great burden. Though Julian had saved his life, his father began to resent his very existence. 9 years had passed between the day Julian left the estate and the day he set foot in it again. The atmosphere at dinner was frigid. Afterwards, Cole was cornered by his father's new wife, a woman so transparent in her desire to promote her own son that it was almost comical. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Julian go upstairs. His heart leaped, and he stood to follow, but he was immediately swarmed. He dropped the pretense of civility, pushed past them, and ignored their muttered curses and jeers. His only thought was Julian. Why would he go upstairs? The door to the study was ajar. He slowed his breathing, raised his hand to knock, and heard a voice. "You're more cunning than you look." His hand froze. Through the crack in the door, he saw a stack of papers thrown onto the desk. Julian stood there, glancing down at them. It was his father, sneering that his own father had played quite a hand before he died of illness, managing to set Julian up so well. Julian's response was flat. He said they never thought that far ahead. His father laughed coldly, calling him an ungrateful dog, accusing him of using guilt to bind Cole to him for years, of shaming him in public. He demanded to know what else Julian wanted to leech from him. The door creaked open. His father's face darkened when he saw him, and he slammed his hand on the desk, ordering Cole to come in and see what he was talking about. It was his parents' medical records. The prognosis had been grim, and they likely hadn't sought treatment because they couldn't afford it. "So what?" Cole shot back. "What does this prove? It doesn't change the fact that they saved my life. You're the one who's truly responsible. You just keep shifting the blame so you can sleep at night. No, that's not right. You don't have a conscience." He mimicked his father's sneer. "And there was no coercion. I was the one who started it. I was the one begging him to fuck me." His father roared at him to shut up, his face crimson, his eyes bloodshot. He raised his hand to strike, but the blow never landed. Julian caught his wrist, his voice calm as he asked to speak with Cole alone. Faced with his father, Cole was defiant. Now he was just helpless. He didn't want to hear it. No, he pleaded, grabbing Julian's shirt. "Let's just go home. Please." Julian pried his fingers off one by one. His face was placid as he opened his phone. The chime of a money transfer notification echoed in the silent room. Cole began to shake uncontrollably, his vision blurring. "Don't," he whispered. "Don't say it." Julian looked up at him, and for the first time that day he smiled. His eyelashes were damp, but his eyes held a look of devastating relief. "Cole," he said, "we're even now. Let's never see each other again. You're free." Julian was gone. Again. Everyone rushed to congratulate Cole on finally getting rid of the manipulative parasite. They said people like that were dangerous, that they could become abusive. They brought up the time he crashed the blind date, how they'd wanted to say something then but were afraid of retaliation since Julian managed their assets. They speculated he was already abusive, pointing to marks they'd seen on Cole's wrists at parties, his tendency to wear high-collared shirts. They pitied him. They said someone of his low birth should never have been allowed to climb so high, that he should have been paid off and sent away. Through the buzzing of their voices, he heard Alex's name. He looked up, his gaze locking on his friend. Alex looked away, then shrugged, saying he didn't know how bad it was before, that if he had, he would have stepped in sooner. Cole's lips twisted into a cold smile. He asked what Alex thought he needed to be saved from. Before Alex could answer, he silenced the entire room. "And all of you," he said, "what business is it of yours what happens between Julian and me?" They looked at each other, their expressions turning to resentment. Someone mumbled that they were just trying to help, that they couldn't just stand by and watch him get manipulated. Manipulated? Cole leaned back, staring at the crystal droplets of the chandelier, and laughed. "Or are you just jealous? That a nobody came out of nowhere and effortlessly surpassed all of you, who've had the best education money can buy since birth." The resentment soured into accusations of ungratefulness. The noise was unbearable. Why did everyone assume he was a victim? His indulgence had always been voluntary. The question he couldn't answer all those years ago had found its answer in the long, empty years that followed. The reason was simple. He loved him. He loved Julian. And so he was willing. But he had never been good at expressing himself. The feelings he couldn't even understand himself, he had likely failed to communicate to Julian. This time, he had tried to make his love tangible, but he had still failed. But at least Julian was alive. He clenched his fist. The 4-needle in the back of his hand pricked a vein. It hurt a little. He was sick because of him. Julian had to take responsibility. I could never tell what Cole felt for me. He said he loved me, but when I was on top of him, he would bury his face in the pillow and cry. He said he hated me, and then he would pick up the chains himself to make it easier for me to lock them. Our relationship began with him begging me to hold him, and it ended with me giving him his freedom. A decade of entanglement was enough. He probably never realized it, but sometimes he would show a flicker of weariness before quickly hiding it, cursing me one moment and submitting the next. He was exhausted, but he kept fighting. I never understood what made him stay. Then I found out he had been paying to have my parents' graves maintained. The answer was guilt. Even though I had tried to hide it, even kept him from seeing the scar. The fact that my parents had died as collateral damage and that I had taken a blade for him had become a chasm in his heart that he could never cross. I held on for a long time. When I saw him secretly going on a blind date, I was relieved. He was finally moving on. But I had to play my part to the end, the part of the obsessive, demonic crore. When I carried him home that night, he was trembling with rage, swearing he never wanted to see me again. I spat back equally vicious words, but my heart ached. It was for the best. You're finally leaving. But in the time it took to fasten a chain, he had changed completely. He looked down on me, challenging me, but his eyes betrayed him. They trembled like the wings of a wet butterfly. Something was different. He was no longer submissive. He held me tight, his response unusually fierce, so fierce that I lost all reason. I felt him touch the scar on my back but was too far gone to stop him. I liked the rating system he proposed. It gave me hope for us. I knew everything he was doing. I knew he had ordered rings, that he was planning to propose. He wanted to spend his life with me. I pretended not to know, playing along, nurturing a secret hope of my own. Until the reunion. He felt he owed me. He wanted to spend a lifetime making it up to me. I should have known. What was I hoping for? That he truly loved me? He was so tired. So many times, in his nightmares, he would clutch at me, tears streaming down his face, whispering I'm sorry over and over. He had nothing to be sorry for. I couldn't bind him to me with guilt. I moved to a small town and took a job as a simple trader at a local brokerage firm. Life was quiet. This was the life I should have had. The mistake of my 18th year was finally over. My life was back on track. But one night, I had a strange dream. They say you can't see your own face in a dream, but in that one, I saw myself clearly. I was pale, my white shirt stained with the crimson of a sunset. I couldn't speak, but a voice came from all around me. It said that once you become a ghost, you can't protect him. You can only watch as he bleeds out on the ground, helpless. He never loved anyone else. He only loves you. The red was too bright, too jarring. I could not believe it. I intentionally let a piece of information slip. The next evening, when I got home from work, Cole was in my small rental house. He was leaning against my headboard, a cigarette between his fingers. I'm sick, he said. He looked healthy enough, but I was still nervous. I walked over and touched his arm, asking where he was unwell. The next second, I was pushed onto the bed. A cold, metallic weight circled my wrist. A golden chain. The other end was cuffed to the headboard. He leaned over me, hot ash falling near my ear. A hard, cold ring was forced onto my ring finger. It was a perfect fit. Not the $2 million one. This one was simple, a Mobius strip just like the one he wore. You can't escape, he whispered, his breath hot against my skin. I want you to stay with me. Forever.